Right.
Hi, this is Sean from Hapus Training, and this is my last video that I'm making as part of a series for my training course, which is called Continuous Directed Change. So, the last video in this series is all about creating a care plan or a wellbeing plan. You can call it Malcolm, doesn't matter what you call it. Um, it's there is huge amounts of information about care plans and wellbeing plans online, so you can have a little look at that if you want to. I'll share with you the principles and how I use a care plan and how I support my clients to use it in the hope that it is helpful. It is. I'm going to say that it's part of this training course that we've been speaking about, but it sort of very much kind of sits alongside the principles that we look at here as a very helpful way of making progress, but also looking after ourselves and monitoring things, particularly if you've ever struggled with your mental health. Obviously, we look a lot with this course through the lens of experiencing ADHD, but also if for those of us whose mental health can not always be brilliantly robust, it is really useful to regularly check in. And it might be quite challenging for a busy ADHD brain to stop and to look at things, but it is super, super helpful. So that's all really that a care plan intends to do. I kind of call it like having sort of supervision with yourself, really. So I always suggest that you want to be doing this kind of review at least once a week. And that it should be not a chore. Well, um, to try and make it as pleasurable as possible and to try and do it at a regular time. So, say for me, it's a Sunday morning. It's invariably with a really nice cup of coffee and a chocolate bar or a cake or something because I like that sort of thing. But however, it's helpful for you to make it something that is a treat. It's something nice. It's time for yourself. It may be that you would struggle to do something like this and you think it's good, then you might want to ask for some help and support and get your partner to sit down with you or whatever. It's always with all of this stuff, it's about using your wisdom, being flexible. If you don't think any of it's useful, don't do it. But if you do think it's useful, make it work for you. So the purpose of a care plan is to sit down and check in on the elements of your life. Check how are they going, because it's very often, well, for the two areas that this course really focuses on. So those of us that have ADHD, life is invariably 100 miles an hour and loads of stuff going on. Introspection is not a strong point, so we're not always noticing how things are or how we're feeling, and things can be really, really busy. So it's quite important sometimes to try and stop everything and check. Or if we do struggle with our mental health, again, it's one of those things that can creep up on us. It's a little bit like, I don't know, lobster in a boiling pot. We don't always notice that it's or the frog rather, we don't always notice that it's getting too hot to handle. We're okay, we're okay, we're okay, we're okay. Suddenly we're not okay. So a care plan is there to kind of help us stay on track and prevent things coming from left field. So let's just look at what that means. So all it means is, for me, it is nice to have a little notebook and write things down because then it helps us to keep a track. But really, it's just about taking that time and sitting there and looking at various areas of our lives. So some of the things are, a lot of what we look at is what we actually cover in the training course. But just to ask ourselves, how are things at the moment? Are we happy with them? Is there any changes? Is there anything to worry about? So let's say we're looking at sleep, say, for example. How is that for us? And of course, that's going to depend massively on the type of person you are. So if you're a person that struggles with insomnia, then you may find that you need to do certain things. You might have noticed that perhaps you're a bit stressed and your coffee intake's increased, and that's affecting your sleep. And that might mean, okay, I notice that's happening. I'm going to try and cut back. For example, I don't tend to struggle to go to sleep when I go to bed, but I do have a tendency to be a bit nocturnal, and my body clock often means that I naturally tend to want to stay up later than is helpful for me. And that I'm a terror for that. Like when I'm watching Netflix and it just goes one more episode, and then I finally going to bed like an hour or two late, and then I'm getting up and I haven't quite had enough sleep, and then I start getting grumpy. So a clear plan helps me to kind of catch that sooner rather than later, and to go, oh, it's not very helpful, is it? Maybe make some changes. And using the principles on this course, it might be, well, okay, if I get to bed early, I'm going to buy myself a treat, and I'm going to do something nice, and to think through what the benefits of that are, and to imagine those changes, and to make those kind of changes. So you get the general principle. We look at sleep, and what sort of changes we might want to make. We can also look at diet in the same way, and when I'm referring to diet, I mean it's in a very general way, anything that you consume. So that's the food you drink, how much water you're having, what your alcohol consumption looks like. Are you taking your medication okay? Are there any supplements that you want to take? Are you happy with those things? And if it might be that you're trying to change things in the long term, maybe really unhappy with stuff, but again, using, say, the principles of the course, what small change could you make this week to help yourself? But staying on track of those things, trying to make, just being aware of stuff. Exercise in the same way. You can put whatever you want on this care plan. These are just suggestions. Work or hobbies, or activities. The reason they would be on there is not to how well are you doing, but from the lens of well-being. So let's say, for example, that you notice that you've had a super stressful week in work, and your child has been really quite unwell as well, and you notice by stopping and looking at it, it's like, oh, things are all getting a bit on top of me. Maybe you want to ask your family or your support network for a bit of extra support. You might want to take half an annual leave day, or ask your partner to do a couple of nights looking after the baby so that you can get some sleep. It's very much, obviously, we're all going to be in different circumstances. I'm just trying to make up situations to give you an idea of what I mean here. When we're looking at, say, work, it's not, well, how well have I performed? It's like, how is this affecting my well-being? And it can be quite helpful when we're looking at a care plan, is to take the time, when we've got that care plan, to make a commitment that if there are any changes, we either decide when we're going to do something about it, if we can't do it straight away, or do it straight away. So, you notice that there's something bothering you in work. Maybe you might want to send a little email to your boss to say, can I have a chat about it on Monday? So that you've done something about it. Particularly important for those of us with ADHD, with that tendency to procrastinate. And if that's going to be hard, then maybe ask your partner to body double you, so that that it gets done. Again, having that flexible attitude, trying to play with things so that things do get done and they are that bit easier. Other things that you might want to have on the list: friends and family. Is everything okay with everyone? So if somebody is unwell or going through a difficult time, is that going to affect you? Do you need to take on a bit less in other areas? Have you got a friend that you've been meaning to see for ages that you're really missing? Maybe take the time to drop them a text and arrange to go out for coffee or something like that. Is there a friend that is perhaps being quite draining and difficult? Do you need to have 10 minutes to chat through how you can assert a better boundary to help yourself? It's just taking the time to try and manage our lives that little bit better. support, which is deliberately separate from friends and family, because as we've talked about, often our support network does come from our friends and family, but we look at, have we got enough support, which can sometimes be different to how our friends and family are. Is that all okay, or am I struggling at the moment? Really important for those of us that have got neurological challenges or mental health issues. Sometimes we can find it hard to ask for support, but these things are needed, so it's sometimes about plucking up the courage if we are struggling. I always think that it is better to take some action and be that little bit careful than regret it because you've had a spate of burnout or finding yourself and your mental health is starting to suffer. So it's just having that attitude of prevention rather than cure. I hope that's sort of making sense. So that's, and obviously you might want to add extra things like any particular hobbies or things that are important to you. You can obviously add those to the list and just check in on, am I doing enough of them? Are they okay? Is everything going all right? You might have your kids or anything else that you want to put on that list. So that's the first part, which is obviously quite important. Just check in, how are things doing? And then there's another section to it that is also, I think, really important. And that is knowing what your tells are. If the wheels are starting to come off the bus and you are starting to struggle for whatever reason, what does that look like for you? Is it that you suddenly find yourself standing around staring at walls more, or you're finding it hard to concentrate? Do you become more irritable? Do you have a tendency to isolate? Does it affect your sleep or what you eat or how much you drink? Knowing what your tells are and writing them down, and then asking yourself, are any of these, am I doing any of these things more? Is there any reason for me to worry? And if so, another thing that's important to have written down is, what are the things that help you? What are you going to do about it? And again, it's always better, I think, to to be more cautious, to act on the side of caution and take action. If you notice that, you know what, I have been super grumpy this week and I'm finding it like really harder than usual to motivate myself, or I have not wanted to go to bed, or I'm eating my body weight in chocolate, or whatever it looks like for you. Those warning signs are there. What am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? Can I book some annual leave day? It's always helpful, well, most of the time, to talk it out, but to be wise about that. Talk to people that are going to be compassionate, that are going to listen to you. So, taking that action to help ourselves. So it's always useful to have thought through, well, who are the people that I trust that I feel okay to talk to if I'm going to start to struggle? What are the things that I need? So, is it a trip to the spa, a walk on the beach, a dance? But what's going to help reset you? A good night's sleep, whatever that looks like. So, I hope that you find that helpful. It's just some ideas. As I say, I'm sure there is lots of information on YouTube and other places around care plans, wellbeing plans. It's a principle that I find incredibly helpful. I'd encourage you to think about how that might look for you. If you have got this far and watched any or part of or all of this training, I really, really hope it's helped. My contact details are available, hapustraining at gmail.com. Please get in touch if I can help at all. Otherwise, thanks so much for bearing with this, and all the best. Take care.